Most people think being broke means you are not working hard enough. They think if you just push a little longer, wake up earlier, take more overtime, or stay more disciplined than everyone else, the pressure will finally break. But for millions of working adults, that is not what happens. They work hard, they stay responsible, they keep showing up, and somehow they are still broke. You know the feeling. You get paid, and for a few brief hours, it feels like your life is finally catching up with itself. Then rent hits, then debt, then groceries, then gas, then a bill you forgot was due. Then some ordinary inconvenience arrives at exactly the wrong time, and the little bit of breathing room you thought you had is gone again. It is not that you are doing nothing, it is that your effort never seems to turn into safety. That is why this video matters. Because if you are still broke after working this hard, the problem is probably not just your discipline. The problem is that you may be trapped inside a system that consumes effort faster than it rewards it. A system that keeps hardworking people alive but never quite lets them get ahead. Today we are going to break down the three biggest traps that keep working people stuck in that cycle. The first is the survival math trap. The second is the salary ceiling trap. The third is the exhaustion trap. And at the end, we're going to lay out a practical escape protocol for how to finally create real financial distance between your life and constant panic. Because being broke is not only about having less money than you want, it is about being one setback away from stress, one surprise bill away from chaos, and one mistake away from feeling like everything is collapsing again. If that sounds familiar, let us begin with the first trap. Before we go into the first trap, we need to answer something more important. Why does it feel so emotionally heavy to still be broke after working so hard? Why does this problem hit people with so much shame, frustration, and exhaustion? It is because most people were taught a very simple story about money. Work hard, be responsible, stay out of trouble, do the adult things you are supposed to do. If you follow that formula long enough, life should become more stable. And when that stability does not appear, people naturally start blaming themselves. They think, maybe I am lazy. Maybe I am bad with money. Maybe I just do not have what it takes. But the reason this hurts so much is not just financial, it is moral. It makes people feel like they are failing a test they were told should be passable. They are doing the respectable things. They are trying to be careful. They are sacrificing more than people around them even realize. And still, every month feels fragile. Every month feels reversible. Every month feels like survival instead of progress. That is what being broke really does to a person. It does not just reduce your options. It changes the emotional climate of your life. A flat tire is not just a flat tire. A doctor visit is not just a doctor visit. A cut in work hours is not just an inconvenience. Everything becomes heavier because every ordinary problem arrives with the same hidden question. Can I absorb this without falling behind again? So this video is not really about how to look rich, sound rich, or pretend to be winning. It is about why responsible people can still feel financially trapped for years, and why hard work by itself often fails to create the thing people actually want. Not status, not luxury, safety. Because that is what most working people are chasing when they say they want more money. They want margin. They want to stop negotiating with life from a position of fear. They want a bank balance that can survive inconvenience. They want to stop feeling ashamed every time reality turns expensive. And if you still do not have that after years of effort, there are usually structural reasons. Let us look at the first one. The first trap is the survival math trap. This happens when your income is just high enough to keep your life running, but not high enough to make your life durable. You are not building distance. You are maintaining motion. You are moving every month, but you are not escaping anything. From the outside, this life can look completely normal. You have a job, you pay your bills, you wake up early, you take care of the people you need to take care of. You are doing everything that responsible adulthood is supposed to look like. But under that surface, the math is brutally tight. Your rent, food, transportation, insurance, debt payments, and basic living costs are already consuming almost everything before the month even begins. That means any ordinary surprise becomes a financial event. Your car needs work. A child gets sick. Your phone breaks. A utility bill jumps. Your schedule gets cut for a week. None of these things are dramatic in the grand sense of life. But when your margins are razor thin, small events do not behave like small events. They behave like reset buttons. Imagine you spend 3 months trying to do everything right. You say no to unnecessary purchases. You cook more. You cut subscriptions. You save a few $100s at a time until you finally reach a number that feels like progress. Then one repair bill lands, one health expense arrives, or one piece of bad timing shows up, and most of that money disappears. Not because you were irresponsible, because your system was too fragile to absorb impact. This is where many hardworking people start hating themselves. They think, why can everyone else seem to handle life better than I can? But in many cases, the answer is not character, it is math. If your base cost of staying alive is too close to your base income, then discipline alone cannot buy you safety. Discipline can slow the bleeding. It cannot create a margin that does not exist. This is also why small raises often feel fake. You get a little more money, and for a brief moment you feel hopeful. Then food costs rise, insurance rises, rent rises, transportation rises. The tiny bit of extra income gets absorbed by a structure that was already waiting to consume it. The result is a particularly cruel kind of frustration. You are working harder, you are earning more, and still your life does not feel safer. That is the first trap. You are not falling behind because you do nothing. You are falling behind because your life is operating too close to the line of failure. And until that line moves, even good habits will feel weak. So the first goal is not wealth, the first goal is space. Enough space that a normal problem stops turning into a financial emergency. The second trap is the salary ceiling trap. This is where many hardworking people quietly get stuck for years because they confuse effort with leverage. They think the answer is simply to work more, stay reliable, and keep pushing. But if your money rises only when your hours rise, then your progress is chained to your body. You can be disciplined, dependable, and exhausted, and still feel like you are living inside the same financial month over and over again. A salary can absolutely help you survive. A wage can feed a family, pay rent, and create stability up to a point. But it has a hard weakness built into it. It stops growing when your time stops growing. If you get sick, if you burn out, if your company cuts hours, if your role gets replaced, the money weakens immediately. Meanwhile, your bills continue behaving like they have never heard of fatigue. Rent does not go into a sympathetic mood because you are tired. Debt does not pause because your energy is low. Grocery prices do not freeze because you gave your employer everything you had this week. This is why some people work harder every year and still do not feel richer. They are extracting every bit of energy they can from themselves, but all of that energy is being converted into short-term cash flow, not long-term power. They are surviving by selling more and more of their time, while the price of staying alive keeps rising around them. The tragedy is that from the outside, it looks like progress. They are always busy, they are always responsible, they are always trying, but the structure underneath their life is still weak because their income remains painfully dependent on continuous output. And over time, which looks productive from a distance, often hides the trap instead of solving it. You work extra hours, you earn a bit more, then the extra money goes to catch-up costs, convenience, spending, debt, and fatigue. Maybe the car repair that was waiting finally gets paid. Maybe the credit card balance drops a little. Maybe you eat out more because you are too drained to cook. Maybe one bigger paycheck gets absorbed by things that were already behind. You are still depending on the next week of labor to hold the whole system together. So yes, you moved, but you did not escape. This is where the phrase work hard can become dangerous. Hard work is honorable. Hard work builds character. Hard work can absolutely create momentum. But hard work without leverage can also trap you inside a loop where your life improves more slowly than your effort increases. That is one of the most demoralizing financial experiences a person can have. The feeling that your effort is real, but its effect is never quite enough. The feeling that you are running faster, but the finish line is somehow still moving away from you. The people who finally start getting ahead usually make one important shift. They stop asking only, how can I work harder? And they start asking, how can I make each hour of my effort worth more? That change can come through a better paying skill, a new role, a better company, negotiation, specialized knowledge, or a repeatable side income. The form changes, the principle does not. A person who raises the value of 1 hour does more for their future than a person who just keeps adding more exhausted hours to the same low ceiling system. That is why this trap is so important to understand. The problem is not that having a salary is shameful. The problem is believing that salary alone will save you, even when the arithmetic around your life is getting worse. If your entire survival plan depends on staying functional every single week with no meaningful leverage and no room to breathe, then your income is helping you live, but it is not yet helping you escape. That is a very different thing. If the first trap is that your money never gets to stay, the second trap is that your income never gets to expand fast enough to rescue you. And when those two traps combine, people become exhausted in a very specific way. They stop dreaming bigger because they are too busy keeping the whole structure from collapsing, which brings us to the third trap. The third trap is the exhaustion trap. This one matters because financial stress does not only drain your bank account, it drains the mental bandwidth you would have needed to fix your bank account in the first place. It weakens your planning, your patience, your judgment, and your ability to think beyond the next few hours. And once that happens, even good intentions start breaking down. People love simple stories about money. They say if you cared enough, you would budget better, shop smarter, meal prep more, cancel every wasteful subscription, study investing at night, and build your future one disciplined evening at a time. That sounds neat in theory. In real life, a tired brain does not operate like a spreadsheet. A tired brain is not looking for optimization. It is looking for relief. It is looking for the quickest way to make pressure stop for one night. When you wake up early, commute, work all day, manage pressure, answer messages, deal with difficult people, and return home already depleted, your mind is not asking for the highest long-term return. It is asking for something easy, immediate, and emotionally available. That is why tired people spend for convenience. They order food they did not plan to order. They delay admin tasks. They ignore paperwork. They keep subscriptions running. They miss deadlines. They tell themselves they will deal with it later. And later keeps not arriving. This is not because they are foolish. It is because fatigue changes the quality of decision making. It narrows your horizon. Instead of asking what would make next year easier, you start asking what gets me through tonight. And once your financial life is being managed by a version of you that is constantly tired, expensive decisions start feeling normal. The $10 convenience purchase stops feeling like a choice. The late fee starts feeling inevitable. The unused subscription becomes invisible. The more depleted you are, the more expensive your defaults become. This is where the trap becomes vicious. The same work required to keep you afloat is often the thing that steals the energy needed to build a better future. You spend your strongest hours helping an employer, helping customers, helping systems, and solving other people's problems. By the time your own life gets your attention, your mind is already depleted. So the task that could have improved next month gets postponed in favor of whatever helps you survive tonight. Then the next week arrives, and the same thing happens again. That means the people who most need clarity often have the least access to it. They know they should save more. They know they should plan more carefully. They know they should build a higher value skill or push for better pay. But knowing is not the same as having the cognitive room to act consistently. The system does not just keep people under pressure. It keeps them too tired to redesign their escape. It turns every important improvement into a project that must compete with exhaustion. This is why being broke after working hard feels so confusing. You think the problem is effort, so you give more effort. But more effort without more margin, more leverage, and more protected bandwidth can make the trap tighter instead of weaker. The answer is not to become a machine. The answer is to reduce the number of financial decisions that depend on your best mood, your cleanest focus, or your strongest willpower. That is why simple systems matter so much. Automatic transfers matter. Default bill routines matter. Repeating grocery structures matter. A small weekly money check-in matters. You are not building those systems because you are lazy. You are building them because real financial stability must survive tired weeks, stressful months, and imperfect behavior. If your financial life only works when you are mentally fresh, then it does not really work. And once you understand that, something changes. You stop blaming yourself for not acting like a robot. You start designing around reality. You build a life that asks less of your exhausted brain and protects more of your future by default. That is how the third trap starts to lose its power. And now we can finally talk about what it actually takes to escape all three. So what do you do if all three traps sound familiar? You do not solve this by pretending you can think your way into becoming a different person overnight. You solve it by changing structure. In the real world, escaping this cycle usually starts with 4 shifts. None of them are glamorous. None of them sound like a miracle. But together, they are often the difference between living permanently near zero and finally building the first real layer of financial control. The first shift is to stop the bleeding. Before you chase wealth, find the places where your money is repeatedly leaving your life without improving it. High interest debt, silent subscriptions, convenient spending that has become a routine instead of a choice, fees, late penalties, and recurring costs you stopped questioning a long time ago. This first step is not glamorous, but it matters because a leaking system cannot hold progress. If every slightly better month gets quietly drained by the same old holes, then discipline alone will always feel weaker than life. And when you do this step, do not do it from memory. Look at the statements. Look at what actually happened, not what you hope happened. Many people think they have an income problem, only to discover they also have a friction problem. Their money is not just disappearing in one dramatic way. It is being eaten by 10 small patterns that have become normal. The point of this shift is not to shame yourself. It is to remove the invisible taxes that keep making your future smaller. The second shift is to build a starter buffer before you obsess over a much bigger number. Many people paralyze themselves by thinking only in terms of 10,000, 50,000, or financial freedom. That makes the gap feel mythical. Start smaller, $500, $1,000, one paycheck. Whatever number creates the first layer of separation between a normal inconvenience and a full panic response. That first buffer does not make you rich, but it makes you less breakable. This matters more than people think. The starter buffer changes behavior immediately. It gives you somewhere to fall that is not a credit card. It gives you time before panic starts making decisions for you. It lowers the odds that every small problem turns into a much larger one. A person with a starter buffer handles a bad week differently from a person with nothing. They still feel pressure, but they do not get reset as easily. And once life stops knocking you all the way back to zero, larger savings finally become more realistic. The third shift is to raise your earning power in one focused direction. Not 10 random hustles. Not fantasy. One real lever. A stronger skill. A better role. A certification. A negotiation. A change of company. A repeatable service. A path that raises the value of your effort instead of only increasing the quantity of it. Because if every improvement in your life still depends on squeezing more hours out of an already exhausted body, the ceiling never really moves. This is where many hardworking people waste time. They stay busy but not directional. They collect effort without changing price. They say yes to more tasks without changing the value of 1 hour. That is why this step has to be focused. One real move that meaningfully changes earning power does more than months of scattered hustle. The goal is not to become impressive. The goal is to stop living in a system where even your best week barely creates breathing room. The fourth shift is to automate protection. Once money finally starts staying with you, do not let the whole system depend on daily willpower. Create defaults, default savings transfers, default bill routines, default rules for raises, bonuses, tax refunds, and side income. If every new dollar lands in your life without instructions, old habits and old stress will claim it before your future gets a chance. Protection is what keeps progress from turning back into chaos. This is where people often separate into 2 groups. One group earns slightly more and upgrades life immediately. The other group uses the first bit of extra margin to create safety first. The second group may not look richer in the short term, but they usually become harder to damage. And over time, that matters more, because once your financial life becomes even a little less fragile, your decisions improve. You panic less. You wait more patiently. You stop paying emergency prices for ordinary problems. None of this sounds magical. That is the point. Real financial escape usually looks boring at the beginning. It looks like removing leaks, lowering pressure, increasing value, and protecting what finally stays. But this is how people slowly move from financial panic to financial control. Not with one giant breakthrough, but with a structure that stops undoing them every month. And once that structure is in place, the future starts feeling different for the first time in a long time. Now, here is the part many people misunderstand. When you finally start escaping this cycle, the first thing that changes is usually not your lifestyle. You do not instantly look richer. You do not suddenly feel glamorous. What changes first is the level of fear inside ordinary life. A car repair is still annoying, but it is not devastating. An unexpected bill is still unwelcome, but it does not knock the wind out of your whole month. A difficult boss still exists, but you no longer feel like every bad work situation must be endured forever because you have no margin to push back. That is the real meaning of getting ahead. Not performance, not appearance, not proving something on the outside. It is the moment when life loses some of its power to bully you. It is the moment when decisions start coming from a little more calm and a little less desperation. And that is why this subject is so important. Most people do not want wealth for the spectacle of wealth. They want relief. They want stability. They want a life that does not feel one setback away from humiliation. When that starts to change, your entire posture changes with it. So if you are still broke after working this hard, do not rush to turn that pain into self-hatred. It may not be proof that you are lazy. It may be proof that you have been trying to build security inside traps that punish thin margins, reward linear labor too weakly, and drain the very bandwidth needed to escape them. You're not just trying to make more money. You are trying to become harder to break. You are trying to create distance between yourself and chaos. That work is real, and the frustration you feel is real. But once you understand the traps clearly, you stop fighting shadows. You can finally start changing structure. So start where reality is. Cut one leak, build one small buffer, raise one earning lever, automate one decision that currently depends too much on your energy. Do not try to become a brand new person by next week. Just make your life a little less fragile, then do it again. Because that is how people really escape quietly, deliberately, without looking impressive at first. And one day, the life that used to collapse every time money got tight starts to hold. That is when the game begins to change. That's all. Thanks for watching.